We're going to keep things brisk and pacey because we're the last thing before lunch, and Van has only given us 45 minutes because she doesn't care about cities, apparently.
I know you're short and sharp. Come on. You can do it.
So that is the topic for today. We're talking about low-carbon urban development. And this is a particularly exciting topic. We're sitting in a very dynamic city, a large city, a busy city, a dense city, an industrious city, and a city that happens to emit a lot of carbon. In fact, cities are one of the largest contributors to Vietnam's carbon inventory. Globally speaking, cities account for about 70% of CO2 emissions, with buildings accounting for 33% just by themselves. In addition to that, you have motorbikes, you have cars, you have energy production, and you have industry. But there is good news. It is possible to build lower carbon cities, and by doing so, the benefit is often that cities are more pleasant and livable places. So that's what we're going to talk about. The subject today is not whether we should have lower carbon cities, because we all agree that we should, but it's rather how to pay for them. I'm here with four fantastic panelists who all have very unique perspectives on this issue. Trang Vuong is Deputy CEO of enCity, a consulting firm that provides urban and regional development solutions. Trang is working on the ongoing Ho Chi Minh City Master Plan to 2040 with vision to 2060. Thank you for being with us, Trang. Our next panelist is Arden, Nguyen from the Vietnam Green Building Council, where she's research and outreach manager. Vietnam Green Building Council oversees Vietnam's Lotus Building Certification Program, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, is very much like the international LEED program for green buildings. So thank you, Arden, for joining us. An Lê is HSBC's National Director for Corporate Banking for Mid-Market Enterprises. He has a lot to say about green finance for building projects and what's constraining the availability of international capital to support them. Thank you, An. And last but not least, Dr. Nam Nguyen. Nam is CEO of KLINOVA. KLINOVA is a climate consultancy which provides solutions and advisory on, long list here, renewable energy, energy efficiency, climate, green growth, circular economy, credits trading, and the environment. Dr. Nam, thanks so much. Trang, I'm going to go straight to you, and I'm going to ask you, what makes a city lower carbon?
Thank you, Jason. So first of all, hello, everyone. Thank you for being here in this discussion. Yes, I'm Trang from enCity, an international consulting firm that is headquartered in Singapore and has offices in Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, and Bandung, Indonesia. We provide solutions for urban and regional development. We have been working in large cities in Vietnam, like Hải Phòng, Thủ Đức City, Ho Chi Minh City, and also development plans for provinces and regions, like some neighboring provinces of Ho Chi Minh City and the northern region of Vietnam, which comprise of 14 provinces. So that is to say, with all the global experience and also local insight, ESG is really the central part of our urban and regional development strategies. Depending on each locality, it can be vernacular, culture, minorities, and gender, and so on and so forth. And for your question about lower carbon cities, I would say that every city needs a development model that reduce the carbon emission in all aspects of urban life. That is energy, heating system, transportation, and then industrial, commercial, and residential activities. Through smaller in scale and size in cities, agriculture and forestry can play a role too. So with that extensive list, we have to see the importance of strategic thinking and an integrated multidisciplinary approach so that we can make cities lower carbon and also higher quality of life.
So, what's getting in the way? What are the obstacles to planning lower carbon cities, and what are the trade-offs that need to be considered?
So, in short, I would say that the trade-offs are short-term versus long-term benefits that the decision makers have to consider. With large cities like Ho Chi Minh City, where the development has been very dense and complicated, we can see the obstacles like land clearance, land acquisition, or eminent domain in the city. And when we're talking about financing for mega projects like the metro, we have the city has a goal to build 200 kilometers of metro by 2030. I can see some of you are smiling.
Can we get the first 30 online first?
Right, because it took more than 1 decade for the pregnancy of the first one. So how can we have that? But I want to emphasize that it's not about the money itself, but it's about how to use that money. So it's about mechanism. So like the chairman of Ho Chi Minh City has shared earlier that the city have that money to build, but it's about the implementation mechanism that the city needs. So the city doesn't ask the central government for money, but for mechanism. And I think we can be optimistic because the city has a new resolution, number 98, since last year. So we should enable the city to do that in the future to come.
Okay, that's great. So we can plan lower carbon cities. We have good reason to believe that the public finance will be made available to build lower carbon cities, but there's a missing piece, and that's the private sector and private developers. You can't really force developers to build lower emissions buildings. So Arden, I have a question for you. I guess where are you seeing the demand? Where are you seeing the developers that want to build lower carbon buildings, and in what categories or segments aren't we seeing that interest?
So, as you know, that there's rapid urbanization in ASEAN, and ASEAN after COVID captured a lot of funding from investor internationally, and so those funding coming from FDI starting to Vietnam. So the forefront for low carbon building is still in industrial. So there's a lot of manufacturer factories that are building low carbon, and then after that you have offices where a lot of company, because of their corporate social responsibility, choose to reside in green offices. And then you have commercial side with company, because of marketing, would want to adopt a green label to stand out. So in a projection, the demand for green will increase by 28% in the upcoming year. We're still seeing a lacking behind for residential sectors, understanding because in Vietnam, the developer tend to deliver the house with just minimum finishes. So there's not a lot of care in how they want to have these building to be low carbon, because then they will, these are the house owner responsibilities, what the house owner wants. So it's not in their hands. So that's why there's not a lot of interest in the residential development.
So in summary, a lot of interest in green building and industrial, especially among FDI, invested manufacturing. Commercial growing at 28% year on year, And then residential, because of some structural problems in the industry, less interest in landed residential. Let's stick with commercial for a second. I've heard the expressions green premium and brown discount for commercial real estate. Can you put some shape to that? How big is the green premium and how big is the brown discount for commercial real estate in Vietnam?
I think let's just have examples. So in Ho Chi Minh City, you have Dutch house, a German house, and versus by Texco. So there used to be a competition when between the Dutch house and by Texco's, because before by Texco used to be like the landmark of Ho Chi Minh cities, right? And then because of how hot it is, the climate in the microclimate inside by Texco, that's why all the renter want to move to Dutch house because it green is more green, and now they are lining up to get into the building as well. So we do see in that sense because it's green building are more comfortable, so that's why there's green premiums, but we are kind of worried because there's brown premiums, there's brown discount in case of by Texco as well because it's get cheaper after the tenant left. No one want to rent there. But we are kind of worried because the developer for commercial, when they go to us and they said that they want to have a green office or Class A office, they only care about the money, and they are not really worried about the logistic or how to get this building come into play, and that what they should be worried about because their team cannot bring this building into realization. And then so that's why even though they have the money, they have the ambition, but they don't have the time and don't have the necessary human resources. So that's why they failed this project.
So you mentioned Deutsches Haus, and I know that that's a project that HSBC helped to finance. Why don't we turn to you on? So, what are some of the financing tools that are at the disposal of property developers, commercial property developers that want to build greener buildings? And if aside from Deutsches Haus, are there good examples of other developers that have accessed those tools?
Thank you, Jason. I also thank you to Mr. Arden for a very nice introduction in terms of Bitachco building and Deutsche Haus. So those are the two buildings are financed by HSBC at the moment. So one we call that is a green loan, which is the German house, and another is a commercial loan given they own the explanation from Ms. Linh earlier. So to benefit of the everyone here who doesn't may not be familiar with the term sustainable finance or responsible investing. So those terms are referred to the integration of environmental, social, and governance consideration into the investment. And sustainable finance is now the largest and fastest growing segment in the capital market. Given there's an increasing push on companies to adopt sustainability activities on their basis today, and also this is mainly driven by the requirement from the government, investor, as well as the consumer. So basically, to respond to the huge opportunities from the ESG. So basically, there's various products as well as solution has been developed and promoted in recent years, such as green loan, green bond, sustainability linked loan, sustainability linked bond, green trade, green deposit. You can name the few. So all of those products are available to developers, And in case that is not available for the developers, or it is not suitable for international investor to access, then we are also working with the client through innovations and creativity to promote the new products. So one typical example that we had is with Vuong Group. So in early 2021, Vuong Group asked us to work with them to raise about 300 million USD in the overseas market. And then we come up with Vuong Group. We work with Vuong Group to work to build sustainable finance framework for Vuong Group. So this is including, kinds of 5 low carbon category and 2 social category. And then we launched the first exchangeable sustainable bond into the market. And this turned out this is a great result. So there's a lot of investors interested in that product. Over 40 investors across the globe subscribe. And then it's oversubscribed. At the end of the day, we closed the transaction with the amount of 425 million versus the target 300 million at the beginning. So this is, I think, demonstrating that the investor care about the right product. Investor care about the green project, and also from the experience that we financed to the German house and another project in Ho Chi Minh City as well, which is the green building. So the total value of those 2 projects are over 100 millions. We see that the companies, the corporate, beside the viability of the project itself, so the corporate who be able to integrate the sustainable finance product at the early stage, at the planning, then it opened for them a pathway to access to the sustainable finance at later stage, and also get more investor interest and more liquidity from the international market.
You were telling me that in order to qualify for HSBC investment, a project needs to be LEED Platinum, right? And you mentioned that there's a limited pipeline of projects like that in Vietnam. Is that right? Am I getting that correct?
I think that there's a various certificate that you can use for to label as to cone as a green building, and when the building is cone as the green building, then we will finance for that transaction. So basically, right now, for us, we use the LEED Platinum as a standard. Besides us, we can use the Ash as well, and also we can for some case-by-case basis, we can look at into the BREEAM certificate as well.
Thanks, Sam. I want to circle back to public finance. We led with that. Trang talked about it extensively, and I want to come back to it. Nam, I know that this is an area where you have some expertise. From a public spending perspective, how is Vietnam investing in lower carbon cities? And what are some of the practical and policy constraints on those investments?
Yeah, so thanks, Jackson, for the good question and hard question. Yes, so follow some speakers this morning to talking a lot about some constraint of time and policy right now Vietnam on the transition pathway. We need a lot of new policy and regulation. For business, they doesn't care so much about the strategic plan of government, of city or provinces level, but they care about their own business, like exactly the question the bring this morning. So I think because I have more than 10 years to be the advisor for policy development in green sector in Vietnam, for MONRE, for MPI and so on. So we recognize that because Vietnam have a lot of challenges on improve some existing policy and regulation. And also we have to adopt a lot of international standards. That's why it brings a lot of challenges for investment for low carbon cities. And of course, agree with Jackson that is public investment is most important. It must be the starting point. So I know right now, like some speakers talked this morning, the green taxonomy of Vietnam is quite important because Vietnam is a developing country. We cannot apply the CBI standard. I'm agree somehow with some speakers this morning. But we cannot because Vietnam is still a developing country. So Vietnam should have the green taxonomy from our country itself. So it will help for a lot for infrastructure development, especially for urban cities. So I think green taxonomy right now is stuck not only for a couple of months, it's stuck for already for more than 3 years. Of course, I'm the technical lead to help the Vietnamese government to develop the green taxonomy of Vietnam. I know the reason is not because of the green taxonomy itself in technically standard or criteria. So it's of course it's an annex of the Prime Minister. The problem here is because the green taxonomy of Vietnam, they would like to combine two of challenging things. First, the list of green projects, but the second, they want to list the condition to be the verifier for the green project. When two of things go together in one policy document, it's very challenging for improvement. Because I agree with you, the green taxonomy not only for public investment, it's also for the private investment. So right now, the verifier is mean third party to bring is the green project or not green project. And then a lot of fund and capital fund and bank here, they're ready for money because money now is a lot, but they cannot bring to the project. So I think the green taxonomy is be the first key thing, but the solution for this is come from the private sector itself. The design of good green project with some quantitative and qualitative criteria and standard, and then if you have the good project enough, you can go easy to go to the bank to get money or the fund to get the money. It's so easy. But yeah, so I summarize the public investment is first important. And now the public investment, now they're waiting for the green taxonomy is still the problem, and we can talk more about it in the next section. But I agree with you, the green public investment should be the starting point for any low carbon city. Yeah, thank you.
So green taxonomy is the stumbling block, as we've heard over and over again this morning. While we're on the subject of difficult problems to solve, I want to talk briefly about energy services companies, or ESCOs, and I'm going to address this primarily to Arden, but other panelists should feel free to jump in. So if you're not familiar with energy services companies, the idea is very simple. Because so many of the investments in greener cities require high upfront capital costs with benefits that in the form of operational savings over time, there are companies that specialize in installing, say, rooftop solar or energy efficient street lighting at no upfront cost to the building owner or government, and then they receive revenue for those projects over time out of energy savings. This is a well-established model. You see it in a lot of countries around the world. It works as advertised, but here in Vietnam, is it even a thing? And why aren't we seeing more of it?
Yeah, ESCO is a very good model internationally. So because I have time spending in the US, so I understand this model quite well. But coming into Vietnam, so before COVID, you see a lot of company, ESCO company, because there's a good source of finance for ESCO from different banks, from World Bank, from the IFC, that went in and backed these ESCO company. And then after COVID, that's when a lot of company cannot do ESCO anymore, and because they cannot finance their project. And then now they only have, so after COVID, we only have a really big names that backed by, like Samcorp, they are backed by Singaporean government because Singapore is the top FDI investor in Vietnam. And the main challenge for ESCO is that banks are more, hesitate towards solar panel because they are still trying to find a way to liquidify solar panels. And there's also ESCO project for government for urban planning, right? So just for example, lighting. So even in Vietnam, in Hanoi, there's a lot of street lightings are not LED lighting, yes. And so in order to transition to LED lighting, there's a lot of funding that need to be poured in from the private sectors and internationally. And the Prime Minister actually intended for this to be a PPP project. But because of the cost of electricity in Vietnam is so low, so that's why there's not a lot of investor interested in provide the finance for it. So we're still seeing that maybe this will improve in 2025 when the carbon market is introduced to the market, and then maybe from that they will have more fundings, more source to finance their project, and then maybe at that time ESCO will be a good thing.
So one of the main issues is the subsidized price of electricity in Vietnam, which helps make electricity affordable and available to communities, which helps with FDI investment, of course, by helping keep energy prices low, but also creates disincentives to energy efficiency and affects the bankability of ESCO models. Okay. I think we've talked enough about problems. Let's talk about solutions. I feel like I need to be uplifted before lunch. So Trang, you're the dreamer. You're the one who's helping cities with their urban master planning. Since we're in Ho Chi Minh City, let's focus on that one. What is the Ho Chi Minh City master plan currently being drafted? What does it say about lower carbon urban development?
Thank you, Jason. But let me clarify, not only a dreamer, but also a thinker and a doer. If you ever build your own house, you know how complicated it could be, right? Your family members can have different opinions, and then your neighbors. Now we're talking about planning and building a city, a mega city. Then yes, of course, the list of problems is extensive already. So the solutions would be a long story that I have to say in a few minutes. I know that some people have been skeptical in the public sector, even they have worked in the public sector before, and in the big master plans or strategic plans. But planning is not just about designing what should be there, but it's about protecting the future opportunities. If you don't prepare the land and the infrastructure from now, then think about all the spontaneous development and urban sprawl. Then the money for land clearance and land acquisition would be even much bigger if you don't plan. So as I mentioned, we have some top contributors to carbon emission, like transportation, especially road transport, which is like usually more than half to 3/4 of transportation emission. Planning a sound transit system is a must for Ho Chi Minh City. And previously, they have already planned for 260 kilometers. In our new master plan, we reviewed all the conditions and proposed a more comprehensive system with 11 lines and 560 kilometers. Now, talking about numbers, I know some skeptical people can ask, even 200 doesn't sound feasible to me. Now you talk about even like a double number. But again, let me tell you, it's about the future of 2040 and 2060. And a city of 14 million people, we look at all the benchmark, would have the same century-peer structure like Ho Chi Minh City. So like Singapore, Moscow, and Tokyo, they also have 40 kilometers per 1 million population. So that is the demand that Ho Chi Minh residents need for the future. And it's not only about the number of lives or the number of kilometers, but also about the hierarchy and how they should be planned so that they can serve all the communities based on the concept of 15-minute cities that I believe that some of you may have heard of. Is a city or the living basin where the residents can live, work, and play and go to all the public amenities within 15 minutes. We also propose green transportation hubs with electric vehicles and bike sharing. We propose personal vehicle restriction policy with many detailed solutions like geographically based toll collection. Then green transportation hub at the key entry point to the city centers so that people can use multimodal transportation. And for example, about parking also offer only 50 to 70% following the national standards. Yes, lower than the national standards in the city centers. All of these examples just to show that how we can encourage the ridership for the public transit. And we propose a feasible goal for this city, which is 50 by 50. So 50% ridership by 2050, which is actually pretty low to compare with cities in the world. Like at the moment, Singapore 70%, Tokyo about 50%, Hong Kong 88%, nearly 90%. So we are just aiming at 50% by 2050 for the public transit. We also encourage walking and cycling by planning and designing pedestrian and cycling routes. And what is interesting is we combine these routes with all the green corridors in the city, try to make the rivers and the canals to be at the front of our life, not in the back anymore. Also applying ICT in measuring transportation system. So those are some examples about transportation planning for the city. Another contributor to carbon emission is energy. So we know that developing renewable energy within the city is quite hard due to the national conditions like the sun, the wind, and also land unavailability. But we still have solutions for that, like building the transmission system to connect to the renewable energy hub, which is already in the north of the city, which is in Tây Ninh. And then having the offshore wind power in the south, in Cần Giờ. We also encourage solar power in not only in residential buildings, but also in public buildings and infrastructure, like how waste water treatment factories can use a solar panel to operate itself. For the industrial, commercial, and residential activities, how to greenify them in the future on the industrial areas within the second ring road of the city will be converted into high-tech park, business park, and like higher train of value industries, while the conventional manufacturing is shifted further to the outskirts. So with that transformation, we try to plan Ho Chi Minh City to be a system of the 15-minute living basins. So really based on the concept of healthy and active city. And Ho Chi Minh still remain as the hub of the region in terms of economics, R&D, education, high tech. And when we talk about reducing carbon, it's not only about how we supply things like energy, but also the demand. We can cut both from the supply and also from the demand end. When people can be enabled with a greener lifestyle and urban design, then we can see the reduction in the demand too. So again, there are many strategies and solutions, but those are some examples covering from transportation to energy to commercial and residential, so that you can have a glance at the future picture of the city where we stay and where we live a lot.
It's an exciting picture, and it makes me very optimistic about what Ho Chi Minh City is going to be like in 2040. We're in Vietnam, and we know that cities, in order to progress with their plans, need national budget support, and they also need enabling policy support at the national level. So let's turn to policy for a second. What's on the national agenda right now that can unlock both public and private finance for the green transition in cities like Ho Chi Minh City? I guess I'll pose that question first to Nam and then to Arden as well.
Yeah, so you are right. So for the agenda of national level of Vietnam, the government already designed a lot of things in the Environment Protection Law 2020, which actually is just valid 2 years ago. The most thing is the carbon credit market, which is piloting in next years, and is official running in 2028. So it's the first very key policy designed to open the market for the green finance, especially for the carbon credit. So last week I was here in Ho Chi Minh City to talk for more than 500 Ho Chi Minh City enterprises here. They have very interest in carbon credit trading, and they are expect almost them. They expect they are the seller. It's not buyers. But I say no. Some of you, at least in Ho Chi Minh City, by the list of Vietnamese government, there are more than 170 entities and enterprises should be the buyer. So it's been, if we are not ready right now, we will lose in the future. We will sell for some international investor who are maybe smarter and clever than us, and we will buy in the future. It's more expensive than the price we sell it from the couple of next years. So I think it's also regarding about of course, carbon credit is the ending of any process for any existing company and factory. But climate finance, but also later on we need to Mr. An to say that is from the climate finance should be ready for the designing of any project. So I think the MPI, the Investment and Planning Ministry, already have program is 167 program is support for small and SME enterprises. Of course, some subsidy from the government is now is non-finance and subsidy, like some capacity building or sharing or open market. But again, I mentioned that the regulation and policy of the Vietnamese government already there. And of course, they are not perfect, but they already have some key thing at the beginning for some Vietnamese enterprises to ready for invest and design some idea or initiative. Of course, when the bank and fund they can meet your need, they will provide some support in money. I think I agree with some speakers. Money is not most important thing. The readiness of the investor, the readiness of project developer is the most important thing right now, at least from the medium term. That for the climate finance for at the beginning of any project. I leave on to Mr. An to talk more about it. Yeah.
So I agree with him in the sense that the government already have some sort of incentive for ESG. But the thing is, the national level, they have incentive, but down to the local authority, they are not sure how to implement these incentive. So that's why part of what we are doing is that we're training in partnership with IBST, the institution of building science, and the VIBM, the Vietnam Institute of Building Materials, to train local authorities as well as other international donors as well. So when we prepare the local authority to harness this investment and know how to do it and implement this framework, we will see that this will be an uptick in what's going on. So there's also many more things that the MOC, the Ministry of Construction, is doing. We are waiting for the decarbonization roadmap coming out in 2025. And then the one thing that's quite impactful is that the guideline on how to implement low carbon affordable housings, because affordable housings, social housing is a big demand in Vietnam right now.
I'm told that we need to start wrapping up so that everybody can go to lunch, although I could keep going with this conversation for another half an hour. I'm going to give the last question to An, because I think it's appropriate for the private sector to answer this one. Look in your crystal ball to 6 years from now in 2030. We've talked about everything that's on the table to improve the bankability of green projects in Vietnam. Do you see a tsunami of green building investments and other green urban investments coming your way, or do you see a trickle, and why?
Thank you. I think that the horizon 2030 is a little bit short for looking for a huge investment into Ho Chi Minh City, especially for the low carbon project or green building projects. I did myself previously when I looked at into the Google. I did Google Ho Chi Minh City plan by 2030, and most of the headlines drive me to the response that Ho Chi Minh City will focus on digital transformation to develop itself to be a smart urban area by 2030. So I guess that in terms of policy, Ho Chi Minh City policy, they try to focus to enable the digitalization first, and then did go to the low carbon project at later stage. So if I may, then and I am a big believer as well. So I think that good intention, good direction will drive good result. So I do expect that Ho Chi Minh City will successfully implement the centralized IT infrastructure to facilitate the living of population within the city, easier to access the public services, and reduce the traffic congestion, reduce the waste within the city. And regarding the kinds of low carbon project, this is the tendency that we cannot avoid, given internally, by the internal research of HSBC, we see that the horizon from 2025 to 2030, the annual growth rate of a smart city is about over 2 digits, and it is especially 4 times bigger in Southeast Asia versus the West. And Ho Chi Minh City is one of the largest cities in Asia Pacific. And the city is looking for up to 100 billion USD to invest into the infrastructure project for transportation, for healthcare, for education. And I believe that there's a lot of project will come to the low carbon investment sector. And this is where huge opportunities for the bank like us to jump in and to help. We are as good as our client. We are here to support. So if we know you have the good project in hands, that we will come to you. If not, then so please come to us, and we will be your big support.
Wow, that is a good optimistic note to close on. I think we've heard that all the ingredients are there. The planning is there. There's a market for greener buildings and lower carbon investments, especially in the commercial and industrial sectors. There seems to be a sincere push at the national level on enabling policy, and there's a desire on the part of the private sector to be part of reducing the barriers to investment in lower carbon cities. So the only variable, as An pointed out at the beginning of his closing comment, is time. On that note, I think I'd like to thank my panelists, Trang, Arden, An, Nam. You guys have been fantastic. I also want to thank our wonderful audience for sticking around and giving us your attention. Please, everybody, enjoy your lunch.